I didn't make a video yesterday, which is the first time I've not made a video properly. I mean, no video whatsoever since Daniel going to college. Now, the reason I was making videos in the first place was because I felt that there was likely to be a hole in my life once Daniel had gone to college. Because I've been so involved as a parent with my children, and that's probably the main focus of what I'm doing rather than my career, because it doesn't really exist, that would have left a big gap. So it's kind of empty nest. And this whole process of making, it's something like 400 videos now, I'm not sure exactly how many it is a way of plugging that gap and doing something, but also trying to put something back in the same way as I put something in the lives of the children, so that they will be able to go out into the world, thrive, be happy, be fruitful, productive members of society and good people. The thing about not having children are dependent upon you. You then have a continuing nurturing role, which is more to do with society as a whole, or a large group of people, than it is to your children. And of course it takes a whole village to raise a child, and in our case we have a global village. That's one of the reasons, one of my motivations for making the YouTube videos. So as the process went on, generally made a load of videos, a lot of which are intentionally educational. And then she got to the point where I decided to do that April Fool video about fake pregnancy, and found that that took off. But in order to fake the pregnancy properly, decided that I would have to take hormonal herbs in order to feel the pregnancy, as it were. Although obviously it's not a real pregnancy. And this is quite important because it is in fact an empty belly that is full of air rather than full of child. And that, I think, is quite significant because we're talking about an empty nest. This is where I am at the moment with what I've worked out and what I think is going on. The transgender thing for me is a midlife crisis. And I'm not that taken with the idea of a midlife crisis, because I think probably what happens is people have midlife crises because they have crises and they happen to be in the middle of their lives, and they may have certain features, but that doesn't actually mean that they form a definite entity in the same way as the andropause doesn't necessarily form a definite entity. And the andropause is actually relevant here because that is about the steady decline of androgens through middle age, and that steady decline for me is a positive thing. The fact that it felt like such the right thing to do when I started taking the estrogens is, I think, to do with that. And what's happened is, I think probably psychological effects have an impact on the level of hormones, and probably the cortisol has dropped quite a bit as well, because that's it, the children are gone. They're not really gone, but you know, it's a new phase. And so what's happening, in the same way as, say, a lot of other men might go out and buy a sports car, attempt to make love with lots of women. That doesn't happen in my life because I'm not interested in sports cars, not interested in money. So what happens to me instead, because my role has been stereotypically more feminine, for some reason that I don't understand, but I suspect is to do with something that isn't particularly amenable to rational explanation, is that instead of doing all that, I have a sudden drop, and the change in my appearance, as far as I'm concerned, is getting rid of all this unsightly body hair, growing a pair of breasts, changing my mind in terms of psychology, and becoming more feminine than I was, I hope. And so that's my midlife crisis. My midlife crisis is, right, sod off masculinity, I don't want anything to do with you anymore, I'm going to be more feminine, because I've now got the opportunity to do that, and that's the opportunity that I'm going to take. So if you like this video, please rate, comment, share and subscribe. If you dislike it, please tell me why, so I can improve and so that YouTube isn't full of rubbish videos. And I'll see you tomorrow, when it almost definitely will be the cell video.